what's up? It's me, Gazbot, and it's day 90. Day 90 of 100 days of making comics. With me, Gazbot. I already said that, right? Music! So I got up quite late today. It was after 1. It was probably close to 2. It's about 3 now. I've had breakfast and coffee, and I've been trying to catch up on all the life and housework things that I let slide the last couple days because of the convention, etc. So I'm taking out trash, recycling. I just now got rid of all the extra packaging and flash for the standee. Flash is what I'm calling the extra stuff I had to cut off. I don't know if that's appropriate use of the term, but I know they use it in model making and toys and things like that when there's excess plastic. And yeah, I'm catching up on a few things like that. I think I'm gonna have another cup of coffee and then sit down and start doing some artwork. Well, here's a nice turn of events. I did sit down and start working on the horror. I've done, I don't know, 45 minutes or so. And I was working on the panel I was been working on the last day or two, which is the big explosion. And I was really not looking forward to working on it today. For some reason, I had been looking forward to it because it's like one of the more exciting panels that I've had in a while. Everybody's talk, and then a big explosion. But when I got to it, the thumbnail was proving difficult, and I kind of got boots worked out, but the background wasn't working. And then today, I thought I was going to kind of scrap it and start over, but I made a couple small adjustments, and it got a lot easier, and I have it done. Again, I always have to reiterate, I still have to ink it and stuff, but it's like, oh, I found it, it's done, I can move on. And here it is. So I put in the shading. Well, I've been putting in the shading a lot, but it was especially necessary in this one because there needs to be like a bright center and then extra heavy shadows here. So we have people, flying out from the middle. She's getting hit, but she's far enough away that she'll be okay. You're not so sure about everyone else. We got the one building crumbling, but then I have another building still intact here and here. So it's not destroying the entire city. It's more of a concentrated blast of one building that, went up, maybe, the gas line exploded or something. And yeah, so extended it up a little bit here behind these panels, and like I said, I made these guys bigger and brought them up, and then I kind of filled in the gaps here, and then that just sort of, I don't know, it made it all work. Oh, also I had this road way up here, and when I kept this the same, but I lowered this part, I see road, I meant sidewalk, I lowered this part down, and it made more sense in perspective, and it just made everything kind of fit better. One of the issues that I was having, and again I said these backgrounds here need maybe be adjusted, is her placement here doesn't quite make sense here because it seems like she hasn't traveled very much. But I think that's worth it for a cheat because, maybe she she does pause for a second. The point is it came together and I'm happy with it. So as I said, I got a late start waking up and I've been, handling house stuff, but I wanted to make sure to get this done. I'm going to get back to it today. Not this page, but I'll start the next page. But I'm going to move on from having got this done, do a few other things and come back to it later. I have returned to this area. Why? Because despite my best efforts, I've not been able to shake the funk. I feel like I haven't woken up all day. I had a cup of caffeinated coffee in the morning. I haven't had caffeine the rest of the day, intentionally because I didn't want to be up all night considering I got up so late in the afternoon. But I feel like I'm still have a little bit of that con hangover, as I always say, which just comes from talking and doing stuff and not getting enough sleep because I don't actually drink or party or anything at the cons. And so, yeah, I've just felt blah all day today. I've got some stuff done, housework-wise and social media and catching up on stuff, but I did that 30-45 minutes earlier today on the horror, which is good and bad. It's good because I got it done, and right now I just do not feel like I could draw. I'm burnt and tired, and I kind of want to go to bed, even though it's a little early for me. But on the flip side, had I not got it done, had I done other artwork, then now I would be forced to do it, and my sense of duty and obligation and professionalism would cause me to. But since I did some earlier, I'm off the hook. So it's one of those things where I completed a 100-day challenge today, but in like a weak way. I don't know, whatever. I guess it's fine. I did the challenge. I'm just being down about myself because I just feel burnt today. But what I'm going to do, since this is otherwise not a very eventful video, is I still have some questions left. So I'm going to do another round of Q&A. And I'm just going to try to burn through a few of them here. I don't always have the right answers, but I can always give you some kind of answer. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave them below or on whatever social media you're watching this on. Let me interrupt real quick. I almost forgot. I have not forgotten about the question about marketing t-shirts. I've gotten a few responses, but I still don't have a great answer. I'm going to give it another day or two before I give up and just say what I got. But if you have any ideas about how to market a t-shirt, especially a limited edition one with pre-orders, things like that, let me know so I can let the questionnaire, the person, them know. Okay, back to this stuff. Okay, first, this is Chris McQuinlan, and he's the world's foremost boomerang salesman, if you didn't know that. He wants to know, what does it take to be truly hardcore? Well, to be truly hardcore, you have to freeze yourself, and you have to get down to below absolute zero for a period of 3 to 7 weeks, and eventually all your layers from the epidermis all the way down through all the organs and into the center, the core of yourself, will eventually crystallize and become super hard. Then, once you're shot into space, not towards the sun, but away from the sun and not towards other stars, because our sun is just a star, you need to get in the frigid coldness of deep space, and there you will start to begin to achieve to have a true hard core. And at that point, you could draw all day, every day, while vacuuming the house, while feeding the cats, while playing with your children and making your wife a salad and paving the roads and reconfiguring the tax code. So that's how you become truly hardcore. Either that or join like some kind of rock band that plays that sort of heavy metal music. Okay, so there's that. Next up, former child actor Mike A. Emeritz asks, why comics? Why not just art? Or just writing? Or something else entirely? Well, Mike, thanks, and I did enjoy your work on Fluffy Butterball's Suntime Hour back in 86, I think it was, whenever it was. You know when it was. Good work, and I'm glad to see that you've pulled through all the things that you went through. But enough about that. Why comics? Now, I assume you mean for me, because I can't explain that for anyone else. I think other people also might not be able to explain that for themselves. I'll do my best. I've talked about this a little bit before about, in terms of my profession or art or whatever you want to call it, my creative life. What am I? Who am I? What do I identify as? Am I an animator? Am I an illustrator? Am I a caricaturist? Am I, what kind of artist? And, I do comics, and I've always wanted to do comics. And I think that's kind of primarily what got me into wanting to be an artist. Animation to a lesser extent, but I think at the time I was too young to realize like how you could be an animator, how that even worked, whereas I could wrap my head a little bit around how you could be an artist, or a comic artist, that is. And I did crummy comics, when I was very little. I remember doing one of the first comics I remember doing, which I don't think I own anymore. For a long time I did, or my father did, to be more accurate. It was like 4 pages of line notebook of some Star Wars comic. And then there was other ones that, I copied things. I did like a Transformers comic, and then I did my own characters, were just rip-offs of other, superhero type characters, on and on. Never went anywhere, never did more than a few pages. Was much more interested in doing character designs and covers, which is the most fun part, and which is what you see all the time, excuse me. I went to school for illustration. I'm not sure, I got a job doing caricatures, and so I was making a living. So then I went to school for illustration, but I quickly switched to animation, but I was still taking comic book classes, and I worked in animation, and I always kind of wanted to get back to comics, and I did a few pages here and there, and I did zines and small press comics that, are not worth really mentioning, other than the fact that it was me keeping my toe in the pool of comics. And I think what it comes down to, and I'm still trying to figure this out myself, is the thing, is it doesn't have to be comics. It is comics, and the reason is I see myself as a storyteller more than an illustrator. I identify a big part of myself, a huge part of my life is, I could draw well, I'm an artist. But I think drawing something well is fine and good, but I like telling a story more. Even this is me telling a story. I don't consider myself a writer, but I have been writing, so obviously I'm some sort of writer. I don't have a ton of formal training or experience. I haven't been paid to be a writer. Well, once I was. More or less, I haven't been paid to be a writer. Not like I've been paid to be an artist. And while I took a handful of writing classes in school, they were just sort of creative writing and English and like the stuff you're kind of required to take as opposed to be pursuing, let me learn writing. But because I like creating characters and putting things out into the world from my own head, I de facto sort of been becoming a writer, especially now that I'm writing a comic. I'm actually a writer. But I would be just as happy working in animation or live action movies or something like that if I had the level of control you can have in comics. And this is what it comes back to in comics. And this is probably true of a lot of people. You could have zero budget and zero help and still make an amazing story with great special effects and acting and take it all over the universe and not have to answer to anybody but yourself. Now, you might be on a creative team where you have a writer and an artist and an inker and a letterer, and so you have a few people that have to kind of agree on things. But if you want, you could do everything. And you don't have to pay anybody, you could do it all yourself. And I could do a story, the story I'm doing now in my comic if I would love to see it as like an anime or something like that, but I know that I couldn't do that myself. And I don't, and that's the thing, I'm not really interested in being an animator on someone else's project anymore. I've done it, and if I have to do it again, I will, for money, or if it's an exciting project, you know, but I think I always was like, oh, I'd love to create the next He-Man. Oh, I'd love to create the next whatever. But then when I got into the field, it's like, well, I just have to take whatever job I can get. And I worked on shows I wasn't particularly excited about, doing parts of jobs that were a little bit tedious and not what I'd want to be doing. So like if I could create a show and be the head on down, that would be great. But even that wouldn't allow me the same creative freedom and immediacy of the comics. Like I'm taking forever to do the comic, but doing a comic is way quicker than doing a half-hour animated television show. Similarly with movies, like I did shorts and little small movies, and I took a couple film classes as electives here and there, and I did like a 40-minute horror movie with a bunch of my friends back when I worked at Six Flags. And, I wrote it, my pal Kevin helped me, and then I kind of directed it, and, and I had more or less complete creative freedom, but almost no budget, and we ran around doing it, and it was fun, and I enjoyed it a lot. But that's, again, if I wanted to really do that, I would lose the ability to have creative control, even if I was on the top. And I wouldn't be. I'd be like a grip or something, or a camera operator on the 3rd unit, or, some background actor. Whatever the job I had would not be a good, you have to work your way up the ladder. So I guess what I'm getting at is, it doesn't have to be comics, but I do like telling stories more than I like just drawing a picture. Even when I do pinups, I have a hard time just having a guy like this. I mean, I could do it, but it just feels like weird, That's why, like, when I have my Godzilla prints, none of them, I have a couple headshots, but the 11x17, I don't have any, now that I think about it, of just like Godzilla. It's Godzilla fighting a monster, Godzilla being trapped, Godzilla looking up, because I'm like, well, what's happening here? What's the story? So, in a way, I want to be a storyteller, but the other thing is it's sort of a lazy cheat, a giving up, I'm not going to be the next Steven Spielberg with unlimited creative freedom as a director. I'm not going to be the next, guy that created Batman the Animated Series who's very famous. Bruce Timm and the other person, the two of them together. I'm not saying this to put myself down. Maybe this could happen, who knows? But it's not happening tomorrow. It's not happening in a week. It's probably not happening in a year. So either I wait for somebody to discover how great I am, or see my blog, or see my DeviantArt and give me some kind of job, or work my way up through these chains, or I just make my own thing. And when I talked like a year or so ago, when I was kind of getting on this path with Q, she was like, well, pick a project and go with it and finish it. And she was right. And other people smarter than me have said that before too. And people in the industry, was it Jake Parker, I think, that said, have a project, not a, complete a project, not, you know what I'm saying, I'm misquoting, but do a project. And she's like, well, you like animation. And that's the thing, this very almost could have been animation. It ended up being a comic, but it was like, am I going to do a short animation? A short animation being a pitch in like 3 minutes, 5 minutes, which would equally probably take me a year to do or more, because it's just so labor intensive, and again, one person doing it. And the reason, she's like, well, what do you want to do? And the reason I went with comic was a lot of the reasons I'm saying, and this is discussing with her, like, well, if I do an animation, I could just do a tiny short animation, and it'll be super labor intensive, and it won't really tell the story I want to tell. It'll just be sort of a preview for hoping somebody will fund it. Or I could do a comic and do the whole thing. Even if it takes a while, I could do it beginning to end, put every single thing I want in there, tell the complete story, and that's kind of what decided it for me. So there's the answer. It's sort of an answer I'm still discovering for myself. It's an answer I've been discovering my whole life, that, maybe my answer will change in a year, 2 years when I finish this story. Maybe I'll never do comics again, or maybe I'll go immediately to the next thing. I will continue to do projects. I will continue to tell stories. I don't know if I'll continue to be doing comics. Even when I was in the band playing songs, the songs I liked, the songs I wrote, were very rarely, poetry, for lack of a better term. They were very rarely kind of about feelings or about imagery. They were stories. Now, they might not always make sense to the person listening to, because it's lyrics and they got to rhyme and they got to fit, but it's a story. Here's the story about how I'm always dreaming about the end of the world, literally, because I have dreams about, a post-apocalyptic world on a fairly regular basis. Different types of things, tidal wave, zombie apocalypse, a volcano, whatever you name it, I've dreamt it. And the song was about that, and talking about all the various ways, or, here's a story about a superhero team, or here's a story about my cat, so again, even the music I was storytelling. And the filmmaking and acting I've endeavored in was storytelling, so That's what I'm about, is storytelling, not comics. And I was trying to blow through these questions quickly, but that was kind of a deep question that I had to think about and sort of explain to myself as I explained to you. So I think I'll do one more, and then we're going to end this. Okay, let's see. The next one I have is Francis Ford. Oh, he's the bacon ball inventor. So he's the guy who invented bacon ball, as we all know. Well, you might not know who invented it, but you know, that now you do. Hey, Bacon Ball by Francis Ford. And he said, Face, the greatest comic that never was. Well, speaking again about comics and why comics and whatever, Francis Ford, I know, before he became famous for Bacon Ball, he and I used to do improv comedy together, and we were just friends in general, but that's how we mainly knew each other. And we also worked together at some crazy jobs. We had come up with, well, we came up with it together, but it was his idea originally to do this comic called Face, and it was like acronyms, I think. I don't know if it stood for anything or if it was just like Face! And it was this team of crazy misfits. And what's funny is the comic never got created. I did all the character designs, and we had a script that I think basically he told me the story, I threw in my feedback, and then I wrote a comic script, and then I did the character designs, and it kind of never went anywhere. And I think a big part of that is me, because I was looking to share the workload with somebody, and he was like, go ahead, do it. And I was like, I'm not going to do it. And that was kind of the end of it. But I also did an animation of Face, as though, and this goes back to where I go back and forth of these things, where it's sort of the opening credits if it was a cartoon, Saturday morning cartoon, like adventure action comedy show. And it didn't have sound. I think I just put like a cover, a Misfits cover of something over it. If I could, I have it, but I have no way to put it on here. If I could figure out a way to put it on here, I will. But yeah, it was all just crazy, like mutants, but not mutants that have like awesome powers, but that had terrible powers. Like there's this guy, Paul Shark, who could shoot pool cues from his eyes, but not like, bah, 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 but he'd be like, huh, and then the pool cue would be like, if this is the pool cue, it'd be like, huh, and and then it'd fall out like clank, clank, clank. That was his power. I think he might have been the leader. And then there was a character based on Francis himself who would vomit on people, and you know, it was just ridiculousness. And it was a good idea, and it would have been fun, but I don't think I had the discipline to work on it, especially by myself. Because as any of you know, doing a comic is hard, even if you're just a penciler, writer, inker, colorist, letterer. But if you're doing all of those jobs, it's even harder and takes a lot longer. And yeah, I didn't have the discipline for it. I barely have the discipline for it now. So that's Face, the greatest comic that never was. So thank you, Francis, and good luck with your bacon ball. So I'm going to call that an end of the question and answer portion. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to call it the end of the day. I may or may not get some more work done, but I'm tired and I want to finish this video and edit it so I can just be done for today. Today, wow, you know what today is? It's been blown by fast, fellas and ladies, and all the others that are out there. It's day 90, and if today is day 90, well, you know what that means!
I know what that means!
What?
Some number of days, 10, 9, 20, 10.
Ah! Yay! You had just the right amount of fingers. I'm like the character from the comic, I thought. Hi again.